You've been very busy. And I came here straight from a vacation where I was actively managing in-laws every weekend. What? Yeah, my mother-in-law's husband. I don't want people to feel yeah. Our job is to be the pleasant. Barb said a lot. I was feeling like it was time for a nap, and then I had a cup of coffee and before that. Flight of stairs down. You might listen.
Welcome, everybody. It's 6 o'clock now, but because it's after the dinner hour, we're going to wait another minute or two and kind of let people kind of come in after dinner. So we'll get started in probably in about a minute and a half or so. All right, good evening, everybody. It's really good to see you here. My name is Joanne Stewart, and I am coordinating this session along with Jeff Raker and Barb Reisner, who's helping people come in the door. And we're kind of going to start a little bit. So there's Barb. We're going to start a little bit slowly because we know people are coming from dinner, so there'll be people coming in over the next few minutes. And so if you're not, make sure you are sitting next to someone. So if you're sitting by yourself, please move so that you're next to someone, because this is a conversation, so there must be conversating that will happen. And I'll, after, when we get to the talking part, I'll remind you of this. All right, so this session is building and sustaining chemistry communities of practice and talking about all aspects of that. And so we'll tell you a little bit about several different chemistry communities of practice, some of the challenges that they face, and then we want to hear from you about communities that you may be part of that we don't know about, or communities that you think we need and should get started, and that's sort of where we're headed. So as I mentioned, I'm Joanne. Jeff and Barb are moderators as well, helping out with questions. And then we have three lovely panelists. So Ann Bentley, who's representing a newer organization called PUNK. Jennifer Chater, who's from the Organickers and has a fan club. And then Liz Sterner, who's from Macro. And so I really appreciate that they are here to help out. I did want to give a quick 1-minute introduction about these communities of practice. So a community of practice is simply a group of people that want to learn about something together. And so if we look to the theory of communities of practice, we know that these communities have a domain, a practice, and a community. So the domain is the thing they want to learn about. The practice is sort of what it is. So for example, I'm an inorganic chemist. I would love to know more about teaching inorganic chemistry. My practice is teaching inorganic chemistry. And the community is that social fabric, the network, the community that I learn with in my community of practice. In chemistry, there are many, many communities of practice. Some of them are, many of them are sub-disciplinary in nature, so people sort of get together and find their people and talk about teaching that specific sub-discipline. Some of them are looking at sort of broadly at introductory chemistry courses, and some are very research-focused, looking at nanomaterials, computational chemistry, et cetera. So there's a broad range of communities, some of which are represented with their very, very, very fun logos in the slide right here. So, and then many of these communities provide open access resources for teaching. And so I picked here the Green Chemistry Teaching and Learning Community, since they are not one of the presenters up here, just to show you sort of how that works. So this is their website for their community. And you can see they have, you can learn, search their library. They have all kinds of teaching, learning resources related to green chemistry. You can find collaborators, meet other people, et cetera. So these communities can provide lots of support and resources for teaching chemistry. All right, so now to my panelists. And so what I'm going to have them do is have each of them just give a quick introduction to what their community is and what their community does. Then I have a question for them, and then we'll do an all-group discussion. So up first is going to be Liz Sterner.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. Macro is the Macromolecular Alliance for Community Resources and Outreach. Our mission is to advocate for and support polymer chemistry and polymer science professionals at every stage of their career, from K through 12 and undergraduate education to professional development through each stage of the career, and outreach to the broader community. So we grew out of a group that started in 1974 called PolyEd, which was spearheaded by some members of the Polymer Chemistry, and PIMSI, Polymer Materials Science and Engineering technical disciplines within the ACS. Then the group did some things early on, partially leading to the development of a Intro to Polymer Chemistry textbook that's gone through a couple editions. It went fallow in like the 90s, early 2000s. Then in the 2010s, a small group of faculty decided to get it started again, namely Phil Costanzo at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo and Dominic Konkolowitz at Miami University. And then in 2017, I got connected to the group through a mutual friend and colleague of ours. And now today, the committee has 3 subcommittees. There is the Outreach Committee, which is done by Phil, which works on a repository of outreach activities that you can use to interact with the general public. We have our Professional Development Wing, which is currently shifting in leadership. That one provides a series of permanent resources on our website, such as how to develop a CV, how to apply for grad school, how to start a research group, and a series of webinars throughout the year on various topics. The third branch is curriculum, and I am in charge of that subcommittee. And we are working on developing and making freely available modules on polymer chemistry that can be dragged into and dropped into your existing chemistry courses. And we wanted to do these things because polymer chemistry isn't one of the traditional subdisciplines, so it doesn't always have a home in the curriculum. And we wanted to make it more natural for people to access that content because polymers are becoming more and more relevant.
This must be a great help now that the ACS, Committee on Professional Training, has a macromolecular requirement or whatever. So can you help, do you help with that?
We haven't, Macro hasn't helped with that directly, but we know people affiliated with us were part of that. As a matter of fact, those 2014 new guidelines were part of why I got hired at my department, because they wanted someone with polymer expertise.
All right, so Jennifer, would you like to go next?
So I'm representing the Organic Education Resources community, or Organickers. Our community goals are to increase faculty awareness of evidence-based instructional practices and assist those faculty with the implementation process, to expand the community of practice of organic chemistry instructors implementing active learning in their classrooms, foster the development of resources that are intended for use in active learning classrooms, and to develop an improved understanding of how to optimize our workshop and community of practice effectiveness. The Organickers community was initiated at the 2012 BCCE by a small group of dedicated faculty. They then launched the website in 2013, organickers.org, and our first newsletter was first published in fall of 2014. We currently have more than 1,000 registered members, but we have a much smaller group that's actively engaged. And so we have recently changed our leadership structure to provide room for increased engagement and growth. We've had some funding, first through the NSF Chemistry Collaborations, Workshops, and Communities of Scholars, or CCWCS. More recently, we've had some funding from the NSF IUS, Improving Undergraduate STEM Education Program, and we've recently applied for a extension of that funding. And we have a diverse group of programming. Our main thing is multi-day workshops. We've held 7 in-person workshops, first from 2013 to 2017, and then again in 2022 and 2023. We've also held 2 online workshops. So the first was in 2021 during that COVID year, and then more recently in 2025, we've held another online multi-day workshop. We also offer half-day workshops and symposia at national meetings. And recently, kind of our bread and butter, as we've been in sort of a funding gap, has been our virtual faculty learning communities and our virtual curriculum development teams. So our FLCs support faculty in developing and implementing evidence-based instructional materials in their classrooms. We had 7 in 2024, 8 in 2025, and we have 5 more planned for 2026. Our virtual curriculum development teams develop peer-reviewed curricular materials that can be readily adopted by Organickers members. We held 2 in 2025, and we have 3 planned for 2026. All of our FLCs and CDTs have 2 Organickers leaders that facilitate those groups, and they meet monthly. We'd love to have you join us. And we also publish newsletters 2 to 3 times per year. And then the last thing I'll say is that we have lots of curricular materials available at our website, organickers.org, so we'd like to encourage you to check it out.
And so these materials, I know you have you've been working very hard on using sort of evidence-based practices and lots of active learning and so on. So can you just say a little bit more about the materials?
Yeah, so we have lots of sample syllabi. If you're interested in flipping your classroom or if you're interested in trying specifications grading, you can find someone who's done those things and see how they've set up their syllabus. We have laboratory experiments. We have formative assessment pieces. We're also looking to expand our amount of peer-reviewed work. So we are looking to expand to give DOIs so that you can have a record of that material that you've submitted to the website.
Thank you. And Anne, you're next.
All right, I'm here to represent PUNC, P-U-N-C. It stands for the primarily Undergraduate Nanomaterials Cooperative. And I feel like the acronym kind of spells it out. It's a group now at about 100 faculty. It was founded by Steve Hughes at Roanoke College back in 2020, kind of like January, February. So to be a part of this cooperative, everyone there is affiliated with a school that's primarily focused on undergraduates. And I would say that our group is a little more research focused than some of the others. So being in nanomaterials involves access or trying to access a lot of high-end instrumentation, and members in the group collaborate and mail samples to each other and help in that way. One big impact the group has had for me is a summer undergraduate research seminar series, so that every summer they organize probably an 8-week-long weekly, it is video online because everyone's all over the country. But when I've had summer research students working with me, participating in that seminar series where they give a talk and then they watch every week all the other schools giving talks, it's really helped expand their impression of actually a lot of other schools around the country and knowing that there's others out there doing nanomaterials, because it's a pretty kind of niche or small, no pun intended, field to be involved in. So that's, we have our own campus series where we're giving an in-person talk, but I've been surprised actually to see the impact, because I'm not super into anything online. But I can see the value to my students in that. And those weekly talks are preceded for the faculty by a little half-hour chat, which is really helpful too. So it's a lot of research focus, a little bit in communication on Discord, a little bit talking about teaching. We have organized symposia at ACS meetings for people to present their work. And one thing I want to mention too is they have a very unique, or we, I say they, we, because I'm a fairly peripheral but engaged, but not on the leadership team for PUNC. But one thing I really admire is they have affiliated with a very recent NSF center that's been funded, that's also focused on nanomaterials, nanochemistry. That's called the Center for Single Entity Nanochemistry, Nanocrystal Design, CSEND. It's based out of Indiana University and Texas A&M. And it's kind of like a beneficial to both parties arrangement, because CSEND comes to the summer research and learns more about exposure to undergraduates. And we've started a summer pilot at REU where our PUNC institutions can apply or send students or nominate students to work at CSEND institutions in a summer research program. And that's helped with some funding. We have a new website called nanocooperative.org. And that website and the development of that came with funds from CSEND. So that's been a really good opportunity for PUNC. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. So last summer, we had the opportunity to bring together leaders from many, many of these communities of practice, and we learned a lot from one another, and we learned sort of what our shared challenges are as well. And so some of those shared challenges are around funding and sustaining funding, leadership and leadership transitions, how to structure leadership in these very sort of dispersed groups, and then also how to do communication in the group among the leaders and out to the group members and then out to the public at large and so on. So I thought I would ask our panelists here to just give example of maybe something their group has done to address one of those challenges. So I gave Liz funding.
Macro has been jointly funded by Poly and PIMSI from the start, because the proposal to create Macro included the fact that it would serve the missions of both of those technical divisions. So that gave them buy-in to support us. When I came in, the organization had been a little bit fallow, and part of that resulted in a little bit of mismanagement of the budget so that there was a backlog of funding. That actually ended up being a surprise blessing for us because we had a couple of years of spend down that we needed to do before we could request new funds from Poly or PIMSI. And that gave us a couple of years to figure out how much we wanted to spend and what we spent it on. So that meant that we were able to come and say, all right, we estimate that we're going to need about $3,000 to $5,000 a year total, equally from your two subdivisions. What we did to also improve the relationship was improve the transparency. So every ACS national meeting, the two chairs of the organization, one that's Poly affiliated and one that's PIMSI affiliated, I'm the PIMSI person, we attend the XCOM meetings and we give a report to our senior leadership in the division detailing exactly what we spent and what we spent it on and what was the outcome of that spending. And that transparency has built up the trust with those divisions so that we are very empowered to request the money that we need to fund the things that we want to do.
Thank you very much. All right, and I asked Jennifer and the Organickers to tell us a little bit about their plans for leadership and leadership transitions.
Yeah, so as I said, we started in 2013, and we had a very small leadership board, just between 3 and 5 leadership board members for the first few years. We started to increase a little bit in 2017 to 2021. We had between 7 and 9 leadership board members, moved up to 10 in 2022. But we didn't really have a great method for bringing in new leaders. And so in 2024, we started a fellows program where we brought in new leadership board members that have completed 1 year-long FLC. And they were paired with some...
What's an FLC?
Oh, sorry, faculty learning communities. And they were paired with an experienced leadership board member for sort of a mentoring program. But we still didn't have a great way of allowing a leadership board member to remove themselves gently from the leadership team when it became a little bit too much for them. And so our new structure, which we've just kind of rolled off the press in 2026, is that we have a steering committee with renewable staggered 3-year terms. So we have 8 subcommittee chairs. One subcommittee chair focuses on those faculty learning communities, one on workshops, one on peer review, one on data collection, one on membership requests, et cetera. And then those steering committee members are led by a steering committee chair. And then each of those steering committee members selects some members for their subcommittee, and those people become part of the greater leadership board. And so now we have a leadership board of 31 for this next year. So we've kind of course corrected in a very nice trajectory. We'll see how that goes. So leadership board members are commit to 1-year terms that can be renewable, and we are still continuing that fellows program where new fellows can serve for 1 year as well. We hold nominations and elections for our steering committee and our leadership board each spring.
So for those of you with MBAs out there, it may seem that leadership is not that big of a deal, and we know how to do leadership, right? But remember that these communities of practice are simply groups of people that want to learn about something together. And so, if you do impose a really rigid leadership structure on that, you kind of break the group a little bit. And so it is sort of tricky to figure out within the culture of your community what is going to work well. How can you plan for sustainability? So thank you. And then I asked Anne to talk a little bit about community communication. Community communication, I'll think a little bit about leadership communication. I liked that you guys had elections because punk holds elections too, which I think is cute. Or, I mean, that sounds condescending, but I think it's cool. So the punk leadership meets on Zoom to plan, and me as more a peripheral person, my main communication from the group actually is through these chock-full weekly summer emails, very reliably arriving in my inbox, reminding me about the seminar on Thursday mornings. And those emails, beyond just a reminder, contain all you need to know about what's going on with punk. So a lot of the communication with the members is through email.
They have launched recently a LinkedIn group that Punk is excited about, and I'm a moderate user of LinkedIn, so I'm happy to watch for that. And we do have a Punk Discord, and that's something I'm really familiar with through a different group. I'm a part of the Ionic Viper group. And so I've seen actually both these Discords are, obviously on my menu. And Punk's Discord, for whatever reason, just hasn't caught fire as much as the inorganic Discord for the Ionic Viper group has. Although, I'm in there trying a little bit. So as far as a community member, I would say that these weekly newsletters kind of coming out are extremely helpful. And I do read everything that Punk's sending out. I'm impressed with what they're getting done.
Why do you think there might be the difference in the Discord sites?
Yeah, I don't know. Because I'm putting the same kinds of things. I'm like, hey, tomorrow I need to talk about this in my class. Any ideas? Crickets. And then I'll come back. I'll be like, okay, well, I found this paper. It was great.
It could partly just be the size of the groups as well. It's very different.
Or just whether it's on a daily checking. Once it gets in, something like that gets into your routine, and I'm not familiar with how this stuff gets adapted, but maybe people just haven't kept it open on their web browser or whatever. Like I have 27 million websites open. One of them is Discord.
All right, so here's what the plan is. We're going to have some conversation with the audience. And so what I need you to do, if possible, is you need to be sitting next to somebody. So if you're sitting by yourself, Amy, then Kyle, then I need you to move so that you're sitting next to somebody. A pair is fine. A group of 3 is fine. So I'd like you to find your talking partner or partners right now. So look to your left and look to your right. And if you see somebody who's by themselves, pull them in to join you. So please do that right now. Find your people. Introduce yourselves, your first names. Go, Kyle. All right, that was very well done. So I would like this next part. I'd like this next part to happen somewhat organically, and that is that, as you know, in sort of true Pogel style, perhaps, that there are different roles that group members play. So if one or two of you could naturally assume the role of facilitator or leader or whatever, that would be great. And then the only other role that I really need today is each group needs a group encourager. And that's the one that says periodically, my, what a great idea, I wish I thought of that, right? So I want to hear people shouting out, wow, that's a cool idea, right? So the facilitator or the group leader, again, you can kind of do this organically, will pick a question to get started with, and sort of maybe if that runs out of steam, pick a different question, because I have some discussion questions here. And so we're going to talk for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then we're going to take questions or comments. So be then ready after 10 to 15 minutes if you have something that you'd like to share that your group talked about that we could learn from. If you have a question for the panelists, that would be okay. And we'll have about 10 minutes for that as well. So one of the issues is we have 1 hour for this, but we also have to transition to the next conversation after this as well. So I'm going to try to manage the time so that we can do the things that we want to do and also get that next group, give them time to set up. So here we go. So the questions, you can pick. You can do all of them. You can do one of them, or as I know what's really going to happen, you're going to run off and talk about whatever you want to talk about. So, have you participated in a chemistry community of practice, either as a leader or a lurker or something in between? What did you gain from that? What do you think of this whole idea? How might community of practice involvement help or harm your professional development? We had a lovely talk in our symposium about that idea. Really interesting stuff. With the asterisk, I have a YouTube little mini webinar about using this community of practice work in your sort of professional portfolio. So that's something you can, if you're worried about that kind of stuff, there's something online to check out. Number 3, if only there were a chemistry community of practice for what? What are we missing? And then number 4, if We talked about these challenges of communication, leadership, and funding. If you're in a community of practice, have you addressed some of those issues? Do you have ideas that you could share with other communities? All right, so 10 to 15 minutes, I'll interrupt you, and we'll come back to whole group debrief when we're done. Go.
I mean, we had some people who were kind of motivated to take the lead and start on that process. But yeah, so we wrote the bylaws, we sent them out for feedback, we had people vote on it, we sent out the proposed leadership structure, what people voted on. Kind of good, honestly. Like I think the steering committee makes a lot of sense, and I think having the staggered terms are really good for a little bit of continuity, but also it means we're going to have opportunities for journalism to come on, new people to come on. We're not really sure what to do about that leadership board level because we want to recognize the people on the but 31 people, trying to get 31 people together at the same time. Yeah, so I feel like we've gone a little bit too far in that direction, and then we'll sort of settle somewhere in the middle. Right, exactly.
The process of doing these things is so important.
But someone gives them something to read. Yeah, they don't
Look at all the way through.
yeah. So yeah, so
Bring back something.
send it to them, and they'll tell you why they hate it and how you can make it better. And I think they were, I mean, I don't know if they were tired. I think they just, they're realizing that it wasn't sustainable. And so they were looking for opportunities. And they also, I mean, we have people that were interested in taking on more leadership role, maybe this is a spot. And so that's in part why it's so good to be I mean, it would be super cool if we got a BCCE tattoo that was that was dedication. Talking.
No, you gotta, I'm gonna do that. Where did we get back together again? What about this one?
Okay, good, I got you.
So I'm trying to I'm 11.
All the more reason.
Yeah, we have heard
I'm not sure. I saw a sign for
mom about
if I'm gonna. Yeah, I don't know that I'm
What a great idea!
yeah, that's what we actually have on our physical campus. I can do either the two semesters or
And it is highlighted. Yeah, I was thinking, again, it's not, so it's not, I think it would be, like, these are kind of,
When
I doubt, you're not gonna do it. But, yeah, but it's,
never get a penny from NSF.
yeah,
It was
well,
like,
yeah. But,
kind of thing. And so I did a little graphic design workshop, and they're like, oh, is that what you mean? Oh, that's so yeah. So you say something about
yeah.
we'll come back.
So I wonder, like, some of the community practice,
Oh,
kind of like
sorry.
often use the PCS
One thing I told them, I said, well, you know, I mean, if you've got little problems with
yes, definitely, if there's
coding and stuff,
easily,
so I want them to do
like
that,
again,
like,
last step,
do some of the stuff.
to justify
Well, at 10 minutes,
traveling to
yeah.
which that isn't
but I'm gonna send you out, we want to do mics exactly, so I need to send you out to get mics, why don't you do that?
temple just doesn't have the
I'll
bottom.
give them a 2 minute. Okay, so you're, so I'll start to.
We have a big undergraduate course. It's more highlighted internally.
Okay, everybody, this is your 2-minute warning. This is your 2-minute warning to figure out what you might want to ask or share or something. So I'll bring you back together in 2 minutes.
Click to the second slide you had for a second so I can take a picture. Yes. This is all new to me. So I just wanted a picture of all.
So the participators,
And that QR code
well, a giant spreadsheet of what they all are.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I have
And I'm going to go 12 minutes or so. And they may not have.
But for instance, we're going to go to section. That everything is
I can't. If it was closer, I probably couldn't see it.
it would be 50%.
Well, this one. All right, if we can pull the focus back together and sort of wrap things up. I could do one of those nice little hand clappy things or something. Last time I did that, people felt insulted, so maybe I won't do that. I could raise one hand. Oh, look at that. All right, you did a great job. I'm very proud of all of you. So what we'd like to do now is take about 10 minutes for you to either share something that your group talked about, something we can learn about. Barb has the microphone. Please talk into the microphone. Or if you have a question for me or our panelists or for one another, that would be great as well. So let's go.
I guess I have one point and then a question. So one thing that Casey mentioned was that a lot of physical chemistry instructors sort of implicitly assumed that they were the only instructors having certain challenges, but then when they got this community of practice together and they had a huge turnout at their first Zoom event, and it turned out that all the instructors had basically the same issues. So that's something that, like, in my case, I'm in chemical engineering and I'm interested in like sustainability and green chemistry education. And I often feel isolated doing that work within my own department. But then when I talk with other graduate students who, like me, are serving as TAs and trying to do this in becoming future faculty, that there are many of us, we're just scattered. So it's not quite the same situation where there's like a whole bunch of us and all of us are on the same point, because but it feels like we're fighting our individual battles in different places. So I guess that's a point, and also the question of how do we kind of not just share the load, but how do we like lift each other up in the work that we're all doing, as opposed to it being like we're all struggling through this together, but we're not actually helping each other. It's hard because we're also doing this, part-time on top of our actual research and dissertating and all of that, right? But it's just something I wanted to throw out there of like, what could we be doing to lift each other's work up and actually form a community practice before we become full-time faculty to help us get there?
Oh man, okay. So in my last faculty review, I was described by my colleagues as an island on an island because I am a polymer scientist in a chemistry department at a small college. This is where a community of practice can really help you out, and you can kind of start small. We have some great examples here of groups that have done wonderful remote networking and holding remote events. Even starting with a support group where you talk about the challenges you're facing, finding those colleagues at other places, and setting aside like maybe 7 to 7:30, you get on a Zoom happy hour with each other just to talk about how things are going and share what challenges you're facing, because you might be surprised at the resources that your support network, your community of practice may have to offer you. That could bloom into a Discord where people can say, hey, I ran out of this chemical, or I don't know how to do this analysis, or I'm facing this troubleshooting error. You can start small with things like that and just keep going, keep sustaining it, and 2 or 3 years down the line, you have your new faculty community of practice.
One thing we didn't talk about is, and I think it also kind of connects to what you're saying a little bit, is that these communities of practice live in this sort of magical middle ground, right? So they are not your home institution. They're not your boss. They are not, whatever. They're not the very broad American Chemical Society does everything, which is, absolutely an amazing organization that is absolutely needed. But these are smaller. These are your people, and they are safe, and that's one of the amazing things. So thank you.
Hi, Kyle Greisen. So in our group, actually someone addressed number 3. If only there were a chemistry community of practice for ChemEd, CER. Now, because I remember seeing that, wasn't there like speaking of happy hour stuff, wasn't there like on social media over there was like a CER grad student happy hours or something that was happening, again, but somebody organized that just kind of as something, right? But like to have a community of practice of CER practitioners, right? Or DBER, if you want to broaden it, right? That I don't know if that exists, so I don't know.
Would any of our CER folks, like to comment?
I do know that the CHED technical division does an office hour every so often online.
And there is also the graduate students somehow are networked, but I don't know how exactly.
I'm going to piggyback on that because I would like to see if there's not, again, I don't know if there is, a community of practice for alternative grading in chemistry, because it seems like a lot of people are going down that rabbit hole, and it's really hard to get started with developing your standards, and finding examples often comes from events like this. But if we could have like a central repository for how like everybody is approaching that to get ideas to help people get started, because I feel like it's such a barrier to figure it all out on your own, and you'd rather see kind of examples of what other people are doing.
So I know Jennifer talked about the fact that the organickers have worked on that. So certainly go to their site and look up some of their materials. There are things on the Viper site for inorganic, and a lot of the inorganic resources are really good for introductory classes as well. It's not just inorganic. Also then there's a group over there, ICLC, which is a relatively new group, and they're working on introductory courses, and they set up these faculty learning communities that are themed, and if they haven't had one on that, they will have one on that at some point in time. So again, this QR code here will take you to a spreadsheet that has each of the groups and their logo, their website, their purpose and goals and things like that. And again, if your group's not up there, I would love to add you, so drop me an email or talk to me afterwards.
I just have a comment on that last person's thing. There is an alternative grading Slack channel for lots of alternative grading, and there's a specific channel for chemistry.
And how do we find that?
I don't know, but I'll get your name and stuff, and we'll figure that out.
Well, and I'd like to say directly related to that, and then what this gentleman over here was saying, is that I would also like a ChemEd community of practice. I am one of those that was classically trained in something else and never got formal training in CER. And so having a community that does that would be fantastic as kind of a check-in thing. I know that they have the early scholars events that are aimed at graduate students, postdocs, early career. And so that's kind of official stuff, but some of us, we don't really fit in there because I'm not considered early career anymore. The Slack thing is fantastic. There's other communities of practice, but also have been started through like Discord, where you have to know the person to get an invite into it. And that, while it's fantastic that they have those things and those communities available, it's kind of like a closed community where some of us who need the help we don't know where to look, we don't know how to find it, we don't know how to get in the door. And so I, for one, don't know how to turn those kinds of things, the Slack, the Discord, into something that's more accessible for everybody else and easier to find. That's it.
Other questions, comments from other groups?
So this is not related to any of your questions up there, but one of the things that I've been contemplating, wondering about, is issues like copyright, like for our organizations, incorporating versus just existing and being happy to exist. And so are there other organizations that have gone beyond being happy to exist and doing like setting up that legal framework?
I know funding-wise, I think what you might be referring to is forming a 501c3 organization kind of thing, where you need a board of directors and you need a, what did you say you guys had? Somebody, well, no, somebody wrote your plan. Like anyway, you need bylaws, yeah, which is more formal. Sorry, now I've forgotten what your question was. Right, but how, like, yeah, you've got your loosey-goosey and then you've got that, but what was the question?
I mean, like a legal framework. Sorry, I'm wondering about like the legal framework
Right.
being incorporated.
That would be
like
a
we all have
nonprofit.
these fun names. Do we just,
Oh, and
are we glad nobody steals them, or do we have to like
sure,
copyright
like
them?
web domain, like you
Web
want to
domain,
own your
all of
domain.
these things, yes.
Yeah, so I'm not a lawyer, but when you have named yourself, it's your name, and you own it at that point in time. You may lease it to others. So, for example, most of us on our websites use Creative Commons licensing for all of our materials, and therefore we control how that material is used and shared. And so that's been an important part of this, is sort of understanding the process of licensing has been really good. The other thing that we've realized more recently after talking with a lot of folks is, for example, the ACS subdivisions have either 501c3 status or so, for example, we learned that if you want to do fundraising, they can be your link to be able to, and Barb can talk maybe more about that. Can you say something real quick about that?
We haven't fully established our relationship with Division of Inorganic Chemistry. I know Division of Organic Chemistry has done some work in that, but they have 501(c)(3) status, and if you talk to them and say, we want to use funds to do something to benefit our community at large, they are perfectly happy to have you use them as the repository, and then it can go to this educational initiative that's benefiting the division. And so for us, we can, they have a Square link or something like that, but we can also have people write checks directly to the division so they don't have to pay the extra whatever fee it is they pay. And I know Organickers is using fundraising to get DOIs for their learning objects. We're thinking about using it for Ionic to defray the costs of the website, and if there are future initiatives for that. So that's what I got.
And I think we'll kind of maybe start to wrap things up right now. I think about maybe, for example, like the Green Chemistry Learning Community and Beyond Benign, maybe kind of flip that a little bit. So they have the well-established, and maybe Jonathan or something can say something about that. They have sort of the legal entity or the well-established thing of Beyond Benign, and then out of that, they have grown their community of practice is how they've kind of balanced things.
Just a really quick point to folk in the back about like access to Discords and such. I'm wondering if there's a way that the ACS could have like basically a platform of here are all of the different organizations and the invite links to them, and then each of them can have just a backup structure where they can moderate who gets in and gets out for just for security purposes to eliminate bots and whatever. But I'm wondering if there's a way to facilitate that. So I'm just tossing an idea into the ring.
Yeah, that's a really lovely idea, and I have to say I was very excited that a number of ACS folks were at the Community of Communities Symposia, and so there's a good conversation happening at this meeting. So that is an awesome suggestion. So with that, we need to sort of get this room ready for the next conversation, and I encourage you all to stay if you can, but if you haven't eaten yet, I understand that as well. I want to thank my co-organizers, Barb Reisner and Jeff Raker. Thank you very much for your support as I was saying, how are we going to do this? And I'd really like to thank my panelists and their willingness when I said, you get 2 minutes. They're like, I got this. And so they did. They kept to their time perfectly. And so if you could please give them a round of applause. Thank you very much.
And kudos to Joanne for organizing it all too.